Cool, everyone. Can you hear me? Everyone hear me okay? Cool. Hey, look, thanks for having me. I'm Alex, I'm from WT, and I've been on Karua Archives, or Karua Archives as it's now called, for almost 7 years. I was part of the hand-picked team fortunate to be part of the hand-picked team that Anton just spoke about, but it wasn't the best start for me because the guy that he spoke about, Bob Hall, absolutely grilled me in an RFP interview to the point where I was like, there is no way I am working on this project. But anyway, we somehow won, and I ended up working on this project. And I think probably what I need to tell you guys about is my background, which is I am not from the construction sector at all. Yes, I work for WT, or in the construction sector, but my background is actually FM and asset management. I used to run CityCare for Wellington, or the Wellington region, and one of the things that I noticed when I ran CityCare was basically how poor the transition is between construction and operations. And it's not anybody's fault, it's not your guys' fault, it's not FM's fault, it's just, well, I actually believe it's the way that we fund building or fund construction. I think it's that problem, but it's a problem nonetheless. And when Bob selected me for this project, or my team, he basically said, you know, we've got this critical building, it's got all these cool features, it's going to withstand earthquakes of amazing scale, it's got a double knock fire system that can't go wrong, we need to get a contractor that's going to be here in 20 minutes to fix anything that goes wrong. And I went, whew, okay. And he goes, do you know what BIM is? I'm like, nah, never heard of it. Don't know what BIM is. And he goes, cool, it's this technology, I want you to look into it. And I'm like, okay, cool, yeah. So I had a couple of meetings with Jason from WAM. And I went, hey, can we get data out of Revisto? And he's like, yeah, what do you want? I'm like, just everything in the building, like all the assets. And he's like, sure, how do you want it? I'm like, do you know what VBIS is, which is a fairly common asset data hierarchy in asset management standards out of Melbourne University? And he goes, nah, never heard of it. I'm like, well, just spit me out the data and I'll figure it out. And he spits me out the data, and it's like, I'll use GHD. It's like GHD floor waste grade number 3. And I'm like, yeah, that's not what I want. That doesn't mean anything in the FM world. So I said, surely the world of BIM, the world of construction, can spit out metadata and asset data in a format that we can use. And he went, nah. It can't. I'm like, wow, okay. So then that was like the first problem we had to solve, because basically if you kind of look at the world of FM and AM, and this is kind of the problem on 2 pages, the first problem is we build buildings, we have CapEx budget, you have a construction budget, we build them, we do VE if it's over, VE typically comes at the cost of operations, and then we write a good look card to the operations team and a bunch of flowers and some keys and a PDF version of as-builts that generally aren't accurate. That's, from the FMAM industry, the perception of how we get handovers from construction. Now, it's not always like that, and I'm sure you all work on projects where it's perfect, but that is the perception in most cases. And if you then fast forward that over the life of the building, that's how you end up with pipes that are bursting, things that fall down in the middle of the night, and civic centres that we can't afford to run and maintain. This is the problem. This is the problem every council in every country that post the war, when we built a load of stuff post World War II, is having at the moment. We never had the data, we never had the resource, either people or money, to maintain it properly because we didn't know. Okay? So how do you fix that problem? Well, I believe you fix that problem with data. And if you engage data early enough, you get this, which is an integrated data system, or you guys call it a common data environment, but you only call it a common data environment amongst your construction industry design groups and, to an extent, constructors as well. But what we've done on archives is we went, actually, we need to get that data for operations. Now, it might be slightly different data, but still just information. It's just assets and information about the assets. That's what we need. That's how all FM companies maintain buildings. You go and look at Corrections and Downer, that's how they do it. They've got WMS, which is their works management system. They can click on a building, they can click on a room, they click on an asset, and they can see make, model, manufacturer. But typically, they have to collect that information, and it's very expensive, and they usually do it 1, 2, 3, 5 years after the building's complete. And by that point, warranties have run out because you haven't maintained it properly, OPEX budgets aren't set because no one knows how much buildings cost to run before PC, so on and so forth. So you can start to see the problems. We don't get CapEx forecasting right. If we did, we might change construction or design or scope, but anyway. So that's kind of what we set out to achieve. And what we did was basically an end-to-end process, and Linda over there was heavily involved in this, and basically I said to the design team, I said, look, I want data in the models. All the stuff that Anton's just talked about in Revisto, I said, I want data in the models, and I want it from basically as early as possible, concept design if possible, latest developed. Because what we had to do, based on the development agreement for this building, we had to provide a CapEx and an OPEX model at developed design. So we can't do that without data. So we had to get data into the model, into Revisto. Now, because Jason told me Revit doesn't magically spit out a bunch of assets, we had to figure out how to do that. And to do that at developed design, it was actually WT that did that. A bunch of my teams basically took the 2D plans, did takeoffs like a QS does, and basically input that data as assets, and then we did the OPEX and CapEx modeling from that. But we kind of went, you know what, that's not ideal, and that's not really good enough for the kind of project that we're working on here. So for construction, what we did was we basically said to LTs, hey, look, are you guys keen to do this data collection through construction? And initially, LTs were a little bit like, sure, that sounds easy. Yeah, no problem, let's do it. And then we gave them the data hierarchy, and it had 26,000 individual assets, possibilities. Now, not every asset is going to be on this building, but we didn't know that. They had to tell us that. And they looked at the data asset hierarchy, and this is without metadata, just the list of assets that we wanted. And they went, ooh, this is a little bit different. And then they said, right, how do we get this into Revit? And then that's where Linda came in, and basically Hannah. And basically we created this process where we, through the construction contract, contracted LT McGuinness to collect, and their subtrades, to collect all the data, put that into basically Excel, upload Excel into Revit, and then Revit to TwinView, which was the digital twin that we selected. So it was an incredibly complicated thing to do, especially during construction. I don't think it's ever been done before. And Linda had to create a very complex process for getting it back into Revit. But we ended up there in the end. Basically what that does, and you'll see that in a minute, and there's a video at the end of this presentation, we basically get to the point where we can create an operational digital twin. Now, back at the start, when I said I have no idea what BIM is, I had to do some learning about what this digital twin thing was. And I Googled it, and we did this huge procurement, this worldwide procurement. We went to all of the digital twin providers. And what I saw was basically what Revisto can create, a digital 3D version of a building that you can spin around and you can navigate and you can walk through and see stuff. But if you take that and you go and give that to Downer, CityCare, Cushman & Wakefield, PAE, BGIS, the list goes on, they're going to go, that's useless. I don't need that. That is pointless. Because you know what? The guy that fixes things in a building does not have a $2,000 iPad. He has a $300 Samsung because he's dropped the last 9 $300 Samsungs, right? And those phones don't run Revit, Revisto, whatever you want, right? And they're not going to use them anyway because the people that maintain buildings walk into the building and fix things physically. They don't look at the digital world to maintain them. But what they do is rely on the information that they get in the system that they use, which is their WMS system. So we went, right, how do we combine this incredibly rich model that we've got with a WMS system? And instead of saying we want a digital twin, what we said was, And I know BMS is a different system, but we said we want a building management system. And I think we need to recategorize building management systems, you know, the thing that runs HVAC, into actually what the digital twin is, because that's what a digital twin is these days. It's the system that runs a building. And then you'll see in a minute that the actual BMS is now integrated into TwinView. So you can actually just control the building via one pane of glass, which is TwinView. And here it is. So that's kind of the process we went through. I'm just gonna, video is 6 minutes long, and this is basically, we made this video today. So this is the live digital twin. This is the digital twin that runs archives. Every single job, reactive, planned, minor works, is run through this system. So at the moment, you're seeing all the information that's on the asset, warranties, guarantees. You can click on an asset. A bit like kind of Revisto, you can kind of navigate. And if you look on the right-hand panel there, you can start to see all the asset metadata that LT McGuinness produced. And all that metadata was produced in the VBIS hierarchy. And that VBIS hierarchy basically gives us the information to be able to produce continual OPEX and CAPEX cost modeling for the client. And actually, so Treasury were the actually people that wanted this. So all of our cost modeling that we did through this process, through the data that LT's created in the VBIS format, went to Treasury. And that's how they basically got funding for this building. I'm just going to let that play, but if there are any questions, feel free to ask them now, and I'll try and answer them.